This is part 15 of the Craftsman 6x48 Belt Disc Sander Rebuild Series. If you haven't seen part 14, click the link at the top of the screen. In this video, we will begin assembly. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff and welcome to my shop. We got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to be doing is cleaning up these two panels here. This one is the terminal cover, and I'm just knocking the dirt off with it. And the one to the right there is the motor data panel. So I'm just using this Meguiar's cleaner wax, and this stuff is pretty safe to use on parts with graphics and stuff. It's not going to wear them away, and it cleans them up pretty good. Next, we're going to go ahead and attach that motor data panel to the end frame, and for this we're using number 4 1/4-inch drive screws. And there we go. So the base for the belt disc sander did not have a panel on it, but it's supposed to. So Matt Blast over on Garage Journal made this one for me, and he did so off of, I took this image and built this graphic and sent it to him, and so he printed it on metal, and here we are. However, my measurements were just a little bit off, and we'll see here when I line up the left hole, the right hole is off. So rather than drilling another hole into the panel, I'm just going to drill another hole in the base. With that hole drilled, we can now attach this. And this again uses the number 4 1/4-inch drive screws. You can get these from McMaster Car. But I think it turned out really well, and I think it looks just like the original. Boom. Too easy. So next we're going to go ahead and assemble the rotor. We've got the plastic slide that comes down and then rotates and locks in place. And on that you affix the 2 governors and then the 2 springs. And we'll just shoot a little super slick stuff in there and wipe it down and call it a day on that. So here we are with the stator and the end shield with the terminal side, and I've already installed that bearing and the spacers in there. I'm sorry I didn't get that on video, but here we are attaching the thermal protection reset button and switch. It has 2 screws. And then we will install the terminal bar with 2 more screws. And that really clean blue-purple wire there, I had to replace the original. It came disconnected and it was pretty stiff, so I just went ahead and replaced it. And then I'll go ahead and slide the terminal end shield on there and then line up the stator stud screw holes. Alright, and next we will install the one of these retaining rings on the rotor, and this is what the bearing, the back side of the bearing will stop on as we press the rotor into the stator. So on the other end frame we will install the spacers and the spring washer and then the bearing again, and then line up the stator studs and then install it on the stator. And you'll see as I do this, from this point forward, I'm going to constantly be checking to make sure that the rotor is spinning freely in there. So now we can install the stator studs. There are 4 of those. And sometimes some of that wiring gets in the way. We just have to clear it out of the way. And this will go ahead and compress the entire motor and get everything fitting like it's supposed to. And again, make sure everything's rolling freely. So now we're going to go ahead and install the capacitor and the capacitor cover. Again, we marked all these, so this is relatively easy to reinstall. And that black with the champagne mist is a really good color combination. I like how it looks. So now we can install the motor on the motor frame. Now, what I didn't realize at this point was the motor is actually wired and running in the opposite direction of where we need it. And I end up changing that later, but for now it's not a big deal. So each end gets 2 of these little half C clamps and then a screw and a nut to attach the motor to the frame. And now we'll go ahead and install the power cord. And I've got a short power cord here for a reason. So we're just going to go ahead and attach all that just like it was on the original power cord. And ground it properly. Then we'll put a hog loop on there as a wire stress relief to keep the cord from being pulled out of the motor. And then we'll attach the terminal cover. Too easy. Now we'll go ahead and test the motor. So I've got it plugged in and we'll switch it on and it runs. It's running in the wrong direction, but it's running. We'll turn it off and listen for the governor click. We're good to hook. So now we're going to install the motor on the motor mount. This is best done when you're not trying to do it on the pedestal itself. So we're kind of guesstimating where it needs to sit on this motor mount, and then we can loosen and adjust it if we need to once we get it mounted onto the pedestal. I probably should have moved the camera, but you get the idea. This is the motor mount support. And it could go under any one of those 2 mounting points. And what I've learned with this particular belt disc sander is you want to mount that motor as close to the column as possible. Here we're just installing the pulley on the motor. You got that keyway, the pulley, and then a set screw. Alright, that aside, this is the work table. And this is some super lube. And we're going to install or assemble the work table. So you've already seen me assemble this once before we painted it, after we fabricated that support. So it's basically the same thing, except all the parts are painted now, and we're lubing everything as we assemble it. I could have gone with some slightly shorter screws there, but not a big deal. Kind of playing around with how I want to mount it. And I did switch out the nuts on one of those with a plastic thumb screw nut. It's not period correct, but it makes it easier to use it. Just apply some Loctite to that fine adjustment knob. And that is the table. So here we are with the belt table. And this is the idler pulley. And we're going to be reusing the bearings that were in the idler pulley. All the other bearings in this rebuild are brand new. But I could not find these bearings anywhere. They do have a retaining ring on the bearings themselves so that they don't slide too far down inside the bearing bore there. And both of them keep the retaining rings. But this is a relatively simple installation. And I'm not real crazy about this idler pulley setup. I like the one that's on my belt disc sander way better. This one's really funky to try to adjust when you're running the belt disc sander. So it gets those two cam assemblies, the springs and the spacers, and the diagram doesn't really show you what goes in what order. Well, it shows you the proper order, but it doesn't show you that the spacers go on the inside or the outside, and they actually go on the outside. So I assembled those with the spacers on the inside first, and then realized that they needed to go on the outside. They wouldn't work if they were on the inside. But we got it figured out. And I could have just gone back and watched the disassembly video and figured it out that way, but no big deal. So here we are with one of the bearings for the pulley and drive shaft, and both of them come with a retaining ring on them. We're going to remove the retaining ring from this bearing. Only one of the bearings will keep the retaining ring. The other one, no retaining ring. They're the exact same bearings though. And we just shot the retaining ring at the camera. So here we're going to install the bearing on the drive shaft. So we'll get it started here. You can see that there is a retaining ring on the drive shaft, and that's what we're going to have the bearing go all the way to. So the drive shaft is going to slide down through the bearing all the way to that retaining ring. Once we got it started, then we can move it up a little higher on the vise and then drive it down through the bearing. And it'll stop at that retaining ring. Too easy. So this is the other bearing, and I just threw the retaining ring for it over to the side because we're not going to need it. So we go ahead and slide the drive shaft in from the left side through the pulley, and then attach the retaining ring and then the bearing, and then drive it back through the other end. And I'm using a piece of steel there to kind of wedge the pulley so that it's in line with the hole or the bore for that bearing. It's kind of a pain in the butt to get this all lined up properly. There's also a little key on the shaft, and it keeps wanting to come loose. Now you can see there's a hole in the center of the pulley there, and that's where the set screw is going to go, and we should see that key lining up with that hole, which is lined up at this point, and all we've got left is to put that set screw in. Even though everything looks like it's loose and sliding around, that's the way it's supposed to be. And that's going to wrap up this video. In the next video, we'll finalize the assembly. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. And as always, I appreciate the support.